I've been her. The mom who said yes until she disappeared, who believed that love meant sacrifice. So she gave her home, her pension, her peace, until all that was left was a schedule taped to the fridge and a threat wrapped in family. Her name in the story is Eleanor, a single mother who raised her daughter alone after her husband left, worked 40 years as a government secretary, and bought her Portland Craftsman with every dime she saved. When her daughter's family temporarily needed a place to land, Eleanor opened her home. She thought she was being generous. She didn't realize she was signing away her freedom. 2 years later, they handed her a work schedule. 6 a.m., wake and make breakfast. 7 a.m., dress the kids and drop at school. 8 a.m., clean the house. 11 p.m., iron clothes for tomorrow. And at the bottom, in her son-in-law's handwriting, all this includes paying for house expenses. That's what your pension is for. But she refused. You can pack your things and leave. At 2 a.m. that night, Eleanor stared at her empty pantry, 3 stale cookies, an expired can of tuna, and realized she hadn't been loved. She'd been used. But here's what no one tells mothers. Exploitation doesn't start with cruelty. It starts with habits you don't even know you're reinforcing. Financial habits that feel like love but function like chains. Patterns that seem generous but leave you gasping for air in your own home. Over the next 6 weeks, Eleanor broke 7 of them, not with rage, not with drama, but with quiet, unshakable clarity. And in doing so, she reclaimed not just her money, but her life. If you've ever been told you're selfish for setting a boundary or ungrateful for expecting respect in your own home, this is your story too. Because the habits that trapped Eleanor, they're the same ones trapping millions of mothers right now. Single mothers who work 2 jobs and still can't say no. Mothers who fund everyone else's dreams while their own savings account sits at 0. Mothers who've confused unconditional love with unconditional access to their resources. This isn't just Eleanor's story, it's a mirror, and what you're about to learn might save your financial life. Habit 1, she stopped confusing family with free labor, the boundary breakthrough. Eleanor's biggest mistake wasn't opening her home. It was believing that because they shared blood, they shared values. When her daughter Renata said, "In a family, everyone has their role," Eleanor nodded along. She thought she understood. Role? Unpaid housekeeper, cook, chauffeur, and ATM. But real families negotiate. They don't dictate. Real families ask, what works for everyone, not what's most convenient for me. The wake-up call came when Renata demanded Eleanor move to the tiny back room so they could take the master bedroom. It's more practical for everyone, she said. Translation, practical for them. Eleanor would sleep in a room barely big enough for a twin bed, while they spread out in the space she'd spent 15 years paying off. That's when Eleanor realized something that changed everything. Practical for everyone really meant convenient for them. And she'd been translating their selfishness into her sacrifice for 2 solid years. She did something radical. She asked herself, what's in this for me? Not out loud, not yet, but in her mind, the question cracked everything open. It forced her to look at the actual exchange happening in her home. She started noticing the patterns she'd been too exhausted to see. Her furniture replaced with their video games, her family photos swapped for movie posters, her book collection shoved in the garage to make room for Gustavo's home gym that he used twice. This wasn't family, it was colonization. They'd moved into her space and slowly erased every trace of her, replacing her life with theirs. And she'd help them do it, one yes at a time. Here's what Eleanor learned about the first habit. If adult children or partners or in-laws live in your home, they must contribute fairly, not just with chores, but with rent, groceries, or a clear exit plan. Love doesn't mean surrendering your space, your stuff, or your sovereignty. Love means mutual respect. And respect requires reciprocity. Eleanor's first boundary, she stopped cleaning up after Gustavo's 3 a.m. cereal binges. She'd been waking up every morning to crusty bowls in the sink, milk rings on the counter, cabinet doors left open. So she stopped, let the crumbs sit, let him see what it felt like to live in the mess he made. When Renata complained that the kitchen was disgusting, Eleanor said something she'd never said before. I agree, whoever made the mess should clean it up. Then she walked away. Silence is a teacher, and sometimes it's the only language entitlement understands. Within a week, Gustavo started rinsing his own bowls, not because he suddenly respected Eleanor, but because living in his own filth was finally more uncomfortable than doing the bare minimum. That's the thing about boundaries. They don't change people's hearts, they change their behavior. And sometimes that's enough. For single mothers watching this, here's your action step. Identify one household task you've been doing for an adult who should be doing it themselves. Not for your kids, they're still learning, but for the grown adults in your space who've gotten comfortable treating you like staff, stop doing that task. Don't announce it, don't explain it, just stop. And when they notice, hold the line. You're not being mean, you're being clear. And clarity is the foundation of every healthy relationship. Habit 2, she quit apologizing for protecting her pension, the self-worth reset. They're saving for their future, Renata told her one afternoon, scrolling through vacation photos on her phone. You've already lived yours. That phrase haunted Eleanor, because deep down, she'd started believing it too. At 66, wasn't her life basically over? Shouldn't she be grateful just to have family around, even if they treated her like an ATM with a pulse? Her $600 monthly pension wasn't extra. It was her freedom fund, earned through 40 years of early mornings, 2 bus commutes, and skip lunches so she could save for retirement. But every week she handed it over. $150 for groceries that Gustavo and Renata ate through in 3 days, $50 for the kids' vitamins and activities, $8 for Gustavo's special shampoo that apparently only one store in Portland carried, and all while they booked luxury hotel getaways with bonuses they never shared. All while Eleanor ate rice and beans for dinner 4 nights a week because there was nothing left after she funded their comfort. The turning point? When Gustavo's mother, Marisa, moved in uninvited and demanded hypoallergenic detergent, silk sheets, and breakfast served at 6 a.m. sharp. Not requested, demanded, as if Eleanor's home was a bed and breakfast and she was the help. Eleanor finally asks herself the question that changes everything. Why is my money funding their comfort while I ration rice? She pulled out her bank statements and did the math. Over 2 years, she'd given them $14,400. $14,400. That was a year of financial breathing room. That was a medical emergency fund. That was the difference between surviving and actually living. And what had she gotten in return? A work schedule, a threat of eviction from her own home, and the privilege of watching them live the life her money was funding. Here's what Eleanor learned about the second habit. Your retirement money is not a family slush fund. It's your lifeline. Say this out loud right now. This money is for my security. I've earned it. Then guard it like the sacred thing it is. Eleanor didn't yell. She didn't lecture. She just stopped paying. When they demanded groceries, she said, I've maxed my budget this month. You'll need to cover it. When Marisa asked for $30 for her special tea, Eleanor said, I don't have extra this week. Maybe Gustavo can help you. Their outrage was immediate. Renata accused her of being selfish. Gustavo said she was punishing them. Marisa called her ungrateful for not appreciating the gift of their presence. But their anger, that was proof she'd been right all along, because people who genuinely care about you don't rage when you stop funding their lifestyle. They adjust. They contribute. They ask how they can help. For single mothers watching this, here's your reality check. If someone in your life only values you for your money, they don't value you. They value your utility. And the moment you stop being useful, they'll show you exactly who they are. Eleanor opened a separate bank account that week. She set up automatic transfers, $200 a month into savings, $100 into an emergency fund. The rest she allocated for her actual expenses, her mortgage, her utilities, her food. Not theirs, hers. When Renata discovered the new account and demanded access for emergencies, Eleanor said the most powerful word in the English language, no. Just no. No explanation, no justification, no apology. Because here's what Eleanor finally understood. You don't owe anyone access to your financial security. Not your kids, not your parents, not your partner. Your money is your voice. And when you give it away to keep the peace, you're teaching people that your voice doesn't matter. Habit 3, she stopped being the default household CFO. The mental load dropped. Eleanor didn't just pay the bills, she carried the mental load of the entire household. She knew who needed new shoes and when. She tracked school forms and permission slips. She remembered which nights were family dinner and which nights Gustavo wanted alone time to play video games until 2 a.m. Meanwhile, Gustavo napped in his pajamas at 4 p.m., calling it work from home. Renata scrolled through her phone for hours, calling it self-care. And Eleanor, she ran herself into the ground, making sure their lives ran smoothly. The exhaustion wasn't from the work itself. It was from being the only one who cared if the system ran, from carrying the invisible weight of everyone else's needs while her own needs disappeared into the background noise of their demands. So Eleanor did something simple. She stopped managing their lives. When her granddaughter asked for cookies, Eleanor said, check the pantry. If we're out, add it to the list. Not mean, not cold, just clear. When Renata demanded a spotless house for her return from vacation, Eleanor replied, I'll do what I can with the time and money I have. Translation, I'm not your maid. Manage your own expectations. The pushback was instant. You're being difficult, Renata said. You're making everything harder, Gustavo complained. But Eleonora held firm because she finally understood something crucial. You are not the household operations manager. You're a person with your own life, your own needs, your own limits. Here's what the mental load actually costs. Your peace, your energy, your ability to think about your own future. Every time you track someone else's dentist appointment or remember their favorite snack or anticipate their needs before they even ask, you're spending mental currency you can't get back. And for single mothers, that currency is already stretched dangerously thin. Eleanor started practicing something revolutionary: strategic incompetence. Not real incompetence. She was perfectly capable, but she stopped being the only competent person in the house. When Gustavo asked where his work shirt was, she said, "I don't know. Where did you leave it?" When Renata complained that they were out of milk, Eleanor said, "Okay, you should probably pick some up." No over-delivering, no guilt, just truth. Within 3 weeks, something shifted. Gustavo started doing his own laundry, not because he suddenly respected Eleanor, but because wearing dirty clothes to work was embarrassing. Renata started grocery shopping, not because she wanted to help, but because running out of her favorite wine was unacceptable. They didn't become better people. They just stopped relying on Eleanor to be their safety net. And that freed up space in Eleanor's mind for something she hadn't experienced in years: her own thoughts, her own plans, her own life. For single mothers watching this, here's your assignment. Make a list of every task you do that an adult in your household could do themselves, not should do, could do. Then pick 3, just 3, and stop doing them. Don't announce it. Don't explain it. Just stop. And when they ask why something isn't done, say, "I didn't get to it. You're welcome to handle it." Watch what happens. Watch how quickly capable adults become capable when you stop being their backup plan. Habit 4. She replaced yes with "let me think about it," the pause power. For years, Eleanor said yes instantly. "Can you watch the kids all weekend?" Yes. "Can you pick up Gustavo's mom from the airport?" Yes. "Can you give us your bedroom?" Yes. Each yes felt like love in the moment. Each yes chipped away at her dignity over time. And then came the Sunday mandate. Renata announced that Sundays were family day, which meant Eleanor needed to leave the house from noon to 6 p.m. so they could have quality time without her in her own home that she owned, that she'd invited them into. That's when Eleanor learned the power of the pause. The next time they asked for something, Gustavo wanted $50 for gas. Eleanor didn't answer immediately. She said, "Let me think about it and get back to you." Gustavo looked confused. "It's just $50. You always say yes." Eleanor smiled. "I know. That's why I need to think about it." That 3-second delay gave her back her power. It created space between their demand and her choice. It reminded her that she had a choice. Because here's what instant yes actually means. You're prioritizing their comfort over your consideration. You're making their urgency your emergency. You're teaching them that your boundaries don't exist. The pause is where your boundaries are born. In that space between their ask and your answer, you get to check in with yourself. Do I actually want to do this? Do I have the time, energy, money, emotional capacity? Or am I just saying yes because I'm afraid of their reaction if I say no? Eleanor started using the pause everywhere. "Can you babysit Friday night? Let me check my schedule and get back to you." "Can you lend me money for the kids' field trip? Let me look at my budget and let you know." "Can you make dinner for Gustavo's mom? Let me see what I have planned and I'll tell you tomorrow." The pause did something else too. It revealed who respected her and who just wanted compliance. When she told Renata she needed to think about watching the kids, Renata said, "What's there to think about? You're their grandmother." Translation, "Your time belongs to us." When she told Gustavo she needed to check her budget before lending money, he said, "Seriously? It's family." Translation, "Your money belongs to us." But when she told her actual friend, Margaret, she needed to think about helping with a church event, Margaret said, "Of course, let me know what works for you." That's the difference. People who respect you give you space to consider. People who use you demand immediate compliance. For single mothers watching this, here's your new default response to any request. Let me think about it and get back to you. Not maybe, not I'll try, just let me think about it. Then actually think about it. Check your calendar, check your bank account, check your energy level, check your gut, and then, and only then, give your answer. You'll be shocked how many requests you would have said yes to out of guilt that you actually want to say no to when you give yourself permission to pause. The pause is your friend. The pause is your protection. The pause is how you stop being everyone's emergency contact and start being your own priority. Habit 5, she stopped paying for their emergencies without a plan, the accountability shift. Every emergency Eleanor funded became a pattern. I need $50 for gas. She paid. The kids need new shoes. She bought them. Gustavo's bonus is for our future. She covered their present again and again and again. But here's what Eleanor finally learned. Real help has terms. Real help includes a plan for how the person will handle the situation next time. Real help builds capacity. What Eleanor had been doing, that was enabling. That was teaching them that their poor planning was her emergency. That was training them to see her as a resource to extract from, not a person to respect. The shift happened when Renata demanded $150 for groceries. Not asked, demanded. "We're out of food and I don't get paid until Friday." Eleanor took a breath. Then she said something she'd never said before. "I can lend you $50 if you pay me back by Friday." Renata's face went blank. Lend? You're my mother. I know, Eleanor said, and I love you, but I'm not a bank. If you need help, I can help, but it's a loan, not a gift. Renata's shock told Eleanor everything, because people who genuinely need help say thank you. People who feel entitled to your money say, how dare you? Eleanor started applying this principle everywhere. When Gustavo asked for money for his mom's specialty, Eleanor said, I can lend you $20, pay me back next week. When Renata needed money for the kids' activities, Eleanor said, I can cover half if you cover half. When they asked her to pay for a family dinner out, Eleanor said, I can't afford that right now, but I'm happy to cook something here. The pushback was fierce. They accused her of being cheap. They said she was ruining family time. They told her she was making everything about money. But Eleanor held firm because she finally understood if you're going to help financially, make it a loan with repayment terms, not a gift. And if they refuse, that's not your problem. That's their character showing you exactly who they are. And here's what happened. Gustavo never paid her back, not once, which told Eleanor that his emergencies were really just his unwillingness to budget. Renata paid her back twice, then stopped asking, which told Eleanor that Renata only wanted help when it was free. And Eleanor, she stopped feeling guilty because she'd offered help on reasonable terms. Their refusal to accept those terms wasn't her failure, it was their choice. For single mothers watching this, here's your new policy. Any financial help you give to an adult comes with clear repayment terms. Write it down, text it to them, make it explicit. I can lend you $100. I need it back by the 15th. If they pay you back, great. Help them again if you can. If they don't, never lend to them again, and don't feel bad about it. Your money is your security, and people who truly care about your security don't put it at risk by treating your help like an entitlement. Habit 6, she quit, confusing presence with servitude, the role redefinition. To her grandkids, Eleanor wasn't grandma who loves us. She was grandma who fixes things, grandma who makes snacks, grandma who finds lost toys, grandma who solves problems. She became a service provider in their eyes, not a person. The shift started small. When her grandson asked for his phone charger, Eleanor said, it's in my room, go get it. Renata's head snapped up. He can't go in your room without permission? Eleanor looked at her daughter. Then I guess he'll have to ask me for permission, but I'm not getting it for him. It was a tiny moment, but it represented something huge. Eleanor was done being the path of least resistance. She was done making everything easy for everyone else while her own needs got harder and harder to meet. She began showing up as herself, not their staff. She played board games with the kids instead of folding their laundry. She took them to the park instead of cooking nutritious meals that Gustavo would criticize anyway. She said no to last-minute babysitting and yes to reading her book in peace. At first, the kids were confused. Why won't Grandma make us cookies, they asked. Because Grandma's tired, Eleanor said, but I'll sit with you while you make them. Teaching them, not serving them. Renata hated it. You're being selfish, she said. The kids need you. But Eleanor finally understood the kids needed her presence, not her servitude. They needed to see a grandmother who had boundaries, who valued herself, who modeled self-respect, not a grandmother who disappeared into their needs until there was nothing left of her. Here's what Eleanor learned. You can adore your family without being on call 24/7. Love doesn't mean availability. Love means showing up as your full self, including the parts that are tired, the parts that need rest, the parts that have limits. She started setting office hours for help. I'm available to help with homework from 4 to 5 p.m., she told the kids. After that, I'm doing my own thing. She stopped answering her phone after 9 p.m. She stopped checking in on everyone constantly. She stopped making their comfort her responsibility. And something beautiful happened. The kids started seeing her as a person. They asked about her day. They noticed when she was tired. They started saying thank you instead of just expecting her service. Not because they suddenly became more grateful, but because Eleanor stopped training them to take her for granted. For single mothers watching this, here's your challenge. Identify one way you're serving your family that's actually preventing them from growing. Maybe you're still making your teenager's lunch. Maybe you're still managing your adult child's appointments. Maybe you're still cleaning up after people who are perfectly capable of cleaning up after themselves. Stop doing that thing. Replace it with actual presence. Sit with them, talk to them, play with them, but stop doing for them what they can do for themselves. You're not helping them by making life easy. You're helping them by teaching them competence. And you're helping yourself by reclaiming your time, your energy, and your identity beyond the person who does everything. Habit 7, she remembered she owned a house, the ultimate power move. The final straw came on a Tuesday afternoon. Marissa, Gustavo's mother, announced that she needed the master bedroom. Not asked, announced. My back can't handle that guest bed, she said. Eleanor can take the small room. Eleanor stared at this woman who'd been living in her home rent-free for 3 months, eating her food, using her utilities, demanding special accommodations, and something inside her snapped. Not with rage, with clarity. That night, Eleanor walked to a lawyer's office with $200 from her emergency fund. Money she couldn't really afford to spend, but money that would change everything. She learned the truth. What they were doing was elder abuse, financial exploitation,